Hello everyone, welcome back to part 2 of lecture 18. So, we will continue our discussion on remote sensing for river health studies. When we formalized the river recovery and health assessment methodology, it was divided into 3 parts. So, in the first part, we used the GE cloud computing, where the JRC surface water and post monsoon median low flow images were used, right. Then identification of out of channel geomorphic units, that was calculated. Then braided buffer zone was identified. Then in the second part, where we talk about the morphological analysis and location probability index, we use this image, right, and then morphological analysis was done, location probability index, that was calculated. This basically directly indicate the river recovery and the river health, right. Then we have this process indicators, and then it moves to mobility space, braided belt mobility, and then integration of LPI, the location probability index, and then we have the resilience based management system, right. The GE was used for the cloud based mapping, which enables automated extraction of braided buffer zone using JRC water data and geomorphic unit identification. Then we have morphological assessment. It is Landsat based morphological analysis, supports the calculation of a location probability index for dynamic fluvial unit. Then indicator development, process indicator helps to quantify morphological transition critical for braided river analysis. Then we have resilience planning, the LPI which was calculated earlier, that was integrated with mobility matrices, guided resilience based management strategies for river corridors. So, here you can see the river recovery concept that was implemented here in the Brahmaputra river. We did this study for 1980 to 2020. The GE was used for the morphological analysis. Now, here you can see that some of the reaches, right, which are having very less width. So, here this is showing the Goalpara, then we have Guwahati, and then we have Tejpur, right. So, you can see how these are changing over the time. So, 1980 to 1990, then 1990 to 2000, then 2000 to 2010, and then we have 2000 to 2010, right. So, here integration of in-stream and floodplain geomorphic units, that is given here. Anna branch, alluvial fans, overflow channel, flood channel, chute, cutoff, meander cutoff, paleo channel, and secondary channels are here available here. So, the pixel value is greater than 1, that concept we have used. Frequent morphological changes in terms of bar formation, migration and sculpting at varying flow stages. Then gradual deposition of alluvial fan after 1980s on the right bank and left bank are prone to more erosion. So, here you can see which are the areas which are increasing in the width. So, that will be because of more erosion. The southward migration of the Brahmaputra is evident from this analysis. You can see how it is moving towards the south, right. As per the overlay analysis, nodal reaches have a lower erosion rate. Basically, we are talking about the Goalpara, Guwahati and Tejpur. These are our nodal reaches, have a low erosion rate. In contrast, the bar dominant reaches are prone to higher fluvial erosion. So, that is why if you see these 3 locations, they have the same or the similar width, but as you move in between and they are having 30 to 40 kilometer width. So, those are having the higher erosion rate, right. And this particular diagram beautifully explains how a particular reach is behaving in different time frame. So, you can see this scale here, it is erosion, here it is deposition, right. So, in 1973 to 1943, what happened in Tejpur and then Guwahati and then Goalpora. So, these three are our nodal stations or nodal reaches. So, you can see during this 1973 to 1990, this Goalpara and even Guwahati, it is having the maximum erosion, right, and especially in the Goalpara region, the erosion was maximum. So, in the first epoch 1943 to 1973, the spatial average of braided belt width and annual bank migration rate is close to 5618 meter. Then interestingly, reaches with bank erosion are sandwiched between the channel segments, showing bank accelerated and are spaced with a reach distance to 10 to 20 kilometer. The nodal sections are relatively stable and a maximum bank retreat rate of 20 meter per year is observed. These are the locations. Erosion or deposition propagation between consecutive reaches are seen here. Currently, this highly braided river system possesses a reach average braided belt width of 9245 meter with 3 stable valley confined nodal section, large islands, unstable braided bars, hierarchical channel and erodible cohesive composite banks. Now, here you can see these are our nodal stations, right, and this in between colors that you are seeing here, it is basically LPI index and the value is 32.9 to 100, right. So, the dark blue color or the purple color, it indicates 100% of the LPI index. So, this image is used to identify the geomorphic stationarity in the Brahmaputra river. So, it refers to the tendency of geomorphic units to occupy a static location within the defined riverian space. The location probability analysis of geomorphic unit suggests the temporal distribution in changing fluvial environment, and LPI in exceedance of 65% refers to the relative stationarity of geomorphic units inside an irregular planform configuration. So, here you can see we have kept this 65%, right. Now, this is the freedom space concept for highly braided river, again the Brahmaputra. So, recovery based management approach. Now, here you can see this is a conceptual diagram showing 3 dominant at a station hydraulic geometries and bank properties in the Brahmaputra river. The relation between disturbance, resistance threshold and recovery and temporal variation of system states. The variability of LPI threshold, bank erosion potential and balance between nature to engineered solutions are also shown here. So, here you can see this is a nodal point, right. Then this is a stable bank, you can see here. Then we have this LPI which is high, then threshold is low, bank erosion is less, right, and here you can see the flooding space, right. So, this is the stable bank. In the second one, we have transitional zones, moderately braided section. Here you have the erodible banks and stable banks both, right. So, if you see this diagram, the system rate versus the time. So, disturbance is greater than recovery, but in the previous one disturbance was less than the resistance threshold. So, because of that you have the braided mobility and flooding space. In the third one where we have the highly braided section, so here you have erodible bank, you also have islands and then again the banks. So, here you can see the disturbance is very high than the recovery. So, in such cases you will have the braided mobility plus flooding space and the islands formation. So, here if you see the nature based solution, so this nature based solution can be used here, engineering solution can be used here, right, and here you can only have the nature based solution. So, the river freedom space concept and resilience based management approach for a highly braided system is given here. This is from the case study 2, river health effective discharge estimation from Brahmaputra river. The diagram is a conceptual diagram which has the process, form and relaxation period variability to dam closure in a peninsular river. The possible alteration in channel forming effective discharge downstream of the dam. Here you can see how these curves are behaving, right. So, if you see before the dam what was the situation and after the dam what is the situation, right. The channel characteristic, peninsular river are predominantly alluvial and often exhibit compound channel form with primary channel and inset floodplains. Geomorphic response, alteration to the nature flow regime can lead to variable relaxation period and induce diverse geomorphic adjustment. Then we have recovery sensitivity. The extent and nature of morphological change depends on physiographic condition, disturbance intensity and historic human intervention. So, for the peninsular river we have this Brahmani river as our study area. So, it is one of the major peninsular river with a catchment area of 39,000 kilometer square and a channel length of 799 kilometer. This river drains along sandy, loamy and coastal alluvial soil and has an average annual rainfall of about 1305 millimeter during the southwest monsoon. The major river intervention, the Rangali Dam, which is here you can see, and the Samal barrage are present near the city of Talcher. So, this is the Talcher and near this you have one barrage and the dam. The Rangali Dam has operated since 1985. So, you can see that here you have these two and then you have Talcher and then here at the end you have again the measuring station at Jainapur, right. So, these are the field photographs of Brahmani river and this is the post dam scenarios. So, the first one is showing the A, which is the micro channel banks. So, here you can see, and here in the B you have diagonal bars and shoot formation, right. Then in the C you have lateral bar close to the flow boundary and D which is the vegetation on mid channel bar, right. So, these are evident in the field investigation. So, the micro channel position and the width adjustment are insignificant over the time frame of analysis. So, we consider this 1980 to 2013, no notable lateral migration has occurred in this particular study reach, right. However, a significant alteration to the in-stream geomorphic unit assemblage is observed, reflecting continuous erosional and depositional activities at different flow stages. So, here you can see the post dam scenario. The post dam regulation has reduced effective discharge leading to incision and the formation of narrower inset channel within the original micro channel. So, here you can see that shoots and diagonal bars and this is the inset channel and here the Q is less than effective discharge, right. And in this particular condition Q is greater than effective discharge, right. So, pre-dam flows, that is the effective discharge, formally activated the entire channel width, enabling bar formation and sediment mobility critical for geomorphic health. The current location where we have this Q is less than effective discharge support limited sediment transport resulting in reduced lateral connectivity and simplified channel structure. Chute and diagonal bar indicates partial geomorphic activities, but full recovery require restoring the flow variability and spatial complexity. Here you can see the energy dissipation over time governs channel state transition along the morphological continuum from sinus to weakly braided depending upon the magnitude and duration of the flow. So, here when we have the Q very less than QE, that is the effective discharge, right. So, then you have the amplifiers, then effective sediment transport, here you have the sinus, then you have chute and diagonal bar recognize, then amplifiers, right. So, this is weakly braided state and this is sinus and this is the zone of your morphological continuum, right. Effective sediment transport may mark the optimum condition for recovery, promoting reworking of channel bars and maintenance of form process balance. High energy phase, where Q is very large than QE, may act as amplifier, potentially accelerating the recognition of chute and diagonal bars, essential for geomorphic adjustment in recovery system. Prolonged low energy condition may support recovery by reducing disturbance threshold needed for bar activation and channel connectivity. So, this is from the Mahanadi, this is the case study 3, and here we have considered Ong and Tel sub-basins of Mahanadi for our study. So, the microchannel structure, here we see that it exhibit microchannel form with inset low flow channel promoting hydromorphic diversity and recovery space. Vegetated landform development, in between we have seen some of the photographs in the previous slides. Submerged and exposed channel shelves have transformed into bar and benches colonized by stabilizing vegetation, enhancing morphological resilience, right. Geomorphic adjustment, the evolution of stable vegetated feature indicate active recovery process influenced by sediment deposition and seasonal hydrology. So, these are the field photographs. Here you can see the submerged shelves, low flow channels, lateral bars and linear benches, right. So, these are from the field. So, based on that we have formalized the river recovery assessment in Mahanadi river. So, here again we have the GE cloud computing and in-stream vegetation cover. So, the field investigation for in-stream and floodplain geomorphic unit was conducted. This is the flow chart for the evaluation of process based recovery indicator. So, with this we have this normalized river recovery index NRRI as a system state response and can be formulated as this. So, where Vi is the vegetation intensities, CIE is the cross sectional intensity entropy, and the norm stands for normalization with maximum and minimum values, right. So, here you can see that we have started our work with the Survey of India toposit. So, this is from 1955 and then we had this satellite images from the GE and the direct access from the different space agencies. We downloaded the freely available data sets and then we processed, and those are used here. Now, you can see some of the figures are marked with LC, BC, right. So, you see it carefully. So, this is the low flow channel, LC is the low flow channel, BC is the bench, VL is the vegetated landform and CT is the chutes, right. So, which is available in different sections in different time frame. So, the vegetation expansion between 2015 to 20 shows a significant increase in cumulative area, indicating enhanced stabilization and recovery process in high energy zones. And the fluvial disturbances decreases with elevation because the slope will be less, while plant biomass increases. highlighting the formation of stable vegetated landforms at higher elevation zones, right. So, here you can see the plant biomass is increasing, then moisture availability aligns with vegetated regions, suggesting its role as a key driver in post disturbance ecological recovery. Low energy zones shows reduced disturbance and gradual biomass built up, indicating passive recovery and morphological stability over time. Now, here you can see the vegetated CIE interplay and the flood induced response, and here you can see this particular graph, this dotted blue line, it is showing the NRRI, right. So, for this particular section you see it is increasing, right, and for this it is decreasing. So, what it means, this is towards the recovery, this is not towards the recovery, right. So, it is getting disturbed. So, here you can see in these two figures the temporal variation of yearly vegetation percentage, cross sectional intensity entropy and normalized river recovery index are plotted. So, this is ONG, this is TEL, right. So, in ONG the NRRI is towards up, right, and it is going down. So, that means this ONG is towards the recovery, but TEL does not show that one. So, the relationship between normalized low flow exceeding and the normalized river recovery index along the ONG and TEL rivers, that is given here. This is the conceptual diagram for the hierarchy of energy dissipation in microchannel system, and dominant variables for the hotspot zones of ecosystem engineering are also presented. So, here the B is the ONG and D is the TEL, right. So, the results can be presented like this. The present study has developed an entropy based system state and river recovery indicator for anthropogenically disturbed microchannel river system. So, the major conclusion from this studies are the disorderedness in bed elevation at sub-bankful stage is effectively captured by a system state indicator CIE, right. Vegetation density and CIE integrated recovery indicator NRRI symbolized river health for channel in channel fluvial system. Finally, the dominance between self-organization of vegetation landform and fluvial disturbances developed an additional degree of freedom and further decides the recovery state of microchannel and planform fluctuation between the end point of the morphological continuum, that is sinus and weakly braided state. So, with this I will end this lecture, and these are some of the references that I have been using in this lecture. And if you are interested to know more detail about this river recovery index, then you can refer these literatures. Thank you very much.